I have seen you, even when no one else noticed, even when the world kept moving and your pain remained still inside your chest. I was there when your eyes closed at night, hoping sleep would quiet the ache. When you whispered prayers too soft for human ears, I heard every word. Even when you said nothing at all, you may not have realized it, but I have been near, like a gentle breath resting on your shoulder, like a quiet warmth that appears when you feel most alone. I'm the Spirit who was promised, the one who descends not with noise but with healing. I do not barge in, I knock, I do not shout, I whisper. And now I am here again, with urgency, but never with fear. You've tried many things. You've looked for answers in places that echoed with silence, and still your heart beats with questions. Why hasn't it changed yet? Why does the miracle seem delayed? But I need you to know something. Just because it's silent doesn't mean I'm absent. Sometimes I move most powerfully in what seems still. Now listen closely. This moment is not random. It's not an accident that you found this message. There is something sacred about this pause, about this breath you're taking as you listen. Because what I'm about to show you can shift the atmosphere around you. For 2 days, I ask you to surrender. Not to pressure, not to performance, but to me. Just 2 days of honest prayer, and you will see what I can do. I am not the spirit of routine. I am the spirit of the impossible. Before we begin, write this in the comments, not for others, but as a declaration of your faith. Even in silence, I trust God's hand. Let your words become your offering. Let them echo in eternity. There are 15 keys I have reserved just for this moment, not hidden in some unreachable place, but waiting for a heart that dares to believe. Keys that open doors not only in your surroundings, but deep within you. Doors of peace, of healing, of clarity. Each key is a word I once spoke, a truth I still whisper, a power I long to release into your life. And at the end of this path, we will pray, not just with words, but with surrender, with tears, with trust. Together, we will enter a space where your heart and my presence meet. And I promise you this, something inside you will not remain the same. There is a final key, the last of the 15, and it holds something sacred. It may be the very answer your soul has been waiting for, not a solution made by men, but a shift crafted by heaven. That's why I ask, stay, even when emotions rise, even when it feels hard, even when your mind says to move on. Stay, because your soul might receive exactly what it's been longing for. This isn't just a video, this is a journey. And this channel, it's more than content. It's a well of living water, a place for hearts like yours, searching, burning, aching for more of me. Subscribe not for numbers, but because I may call on you again. And when I do, I want you to hear me. So now we begin. I'll walk with you step by step, one key at a time, one truth at a time. But let me ask you something before we take the first step. What if the miracle you're waiting for isn't around you, but within you? Let's open the first door. Key 1, letting go of control, unlocks the flow of the impossible you hold so tightly. Not just with your hands, but with your thoughts, your fears, your expectations. You try to plan everything, fix everything, hold everything together. And maybe that's what life taught you, that if you let go, things fall apart. That if you don't take control, everything spins into chaos. But I need to ask you something. And I ask with love, not judgment. How much peace has control truly given you? You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already racing. The tasks, the people, the possibilities, the problems. You carry them all like invisible weights, and every time you try to rest, it's like your thoughts refuse to let you. There's this tension in your chest, that constant whisper that says, don't stop, don't fail, don't trust too much. You've confused control with safety. But I am here to tell you, true safety doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. There was once a man who walked on water. Not because he had power, but because he had faith. Peter didn't calculate the steps. He didn't make a plan. He simply responded to one voice. Mine. Come, I said. And for a moment, with his eyes on me, he walked in the realm of the impossible. But the moment he tried to take control, the moment fear replaced faith, he sank. I don't tell you this to shame you. I tell you because I see you. You've been trying so hard to walk above your own storm. You've done everything you could to hold yourself up, but what if walking on water was never about your strength and always about my presence? There is a flow from heaven, a current of peace, clarity, and supernatural breakthrough, but it only reaches those who release what they're clinging to. Your hands are too full to receive what I want to give. Your plans too loud to hear what I am whispering. It's not punishment, it's invitation. I don't need you to have it all figured out. I need you to trust me with what you can't see. Do you remember the Israelites standing at the Red Sea? Behind them, Egypt, slavery, trauma, years of oppression. In front of them, water, deep, uncrossable, terrifying, but I was there. I led them there, not to drown them, but to deliver them. I needed to show them something they could only see at the end of themselves. And when they stopped panicking, when they stopped blaming, when they let me lead, the sea split. Because when you let go, I begin. Let me speak clearly to your heart. The miracle you're waiting for is on the other side of surrender. But surrender is not a feeling. It's not a one-time prayer. It's not weakness. It is the most powerful spiritual key you possess because it opens doors your strength could never unlock. It invites me to move where your effort has reached its limit. When you say, Holy Spirit, I give you control, you're not losing. You're aligning with heaven's rhythm. So I ask, what are you still holding on to? Is it the fear of being hurt again? The belief that if you don't manage everything, it will all collapse? The voice that says, I can't trust anyone, not even God. I know it's hard. I know the wounds that made you build those walls, but I am not like them. I don't abandon, I don't lie, I don't fail, and right now I am gently asking you, let go of the outcome, let go of the timeline, let go of the pressure. Not because it doesn't matter, but because I want to carry it for you. Do you remember Jesus in the garden? Even he, the Son, came to a place of surrender. Not my will, but yours be done. And in that moment, though it was the doorway to the cross, it also became the path to resurrection, because surrender always precedes power. This is your garden moment. You've come here with dreams, fears, weariness. You've tried, cried, waited, and now I am whispering, let me lead. I know the way through this. I know what's on the other side, and I promise it's not death, it's life, it's not failure, it's fulfillment. If this truth is stirring something deep in you, then stay close, stay open, stay soft, because this is just the beginning. There are still 14 more keys to be revealed, each one a breath of heaven, a light for your path, a hand on your heart. But first, I invite you to speak. Speak not with perfect words, but with faith. In the comments below, write this phrase, I surrender the outcome. Holy Spirit, take the lead. Not for others to see, but for your own spirit to remember. There is power in declaration. There is healing in honesty. This moment, this key, is sacred. But it is also a seed. What you do with it matters. Some will hear this and move on. Others will feel it and still resist. But you know something is different. You can feel it in your chest. that soft burning, that almost tears feeling. That's me. That's the gentle confirmation that I am speaking. Letting go won't remove all pain instantly. It won't cancel your responsibilities, but it will realign your spirit. It will unclench the fists of your soul. It will shift the weight of the battle from your shoulders to mine. And from that place, everything changes. You're not alone. All across the world, people just like you are hearing my call. They are tired, but they are also ready. Ready to stop striving. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to begin again, this time led by me. So keep your heart open. The next key will build upon this one. It will go deeper, speak clearer, heal stronger, but none of them can unlock anything if your hands are still gripping control. Let me end this part with a question that may linger in your heart long after this video ends. What if the breakthrough you're begging for is already waiting for you to let go? Key 2. Faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to keep walking in the dark. You woke up this morning, didn't you? Maybe not with excitement, maybe not with clarity, but you got up. And that says more about your faith than 1,000 loud declarations. Because there are days when faith doesn't feel like fire. It doesn't roar, it doesn't shine, it just survives. It takes one more breath, one more step, one more quiet yes to a God you can't see. You've been there, in the hallway between what was and what you pray will be. And that hallway is darker than anyone tells you. You thought God's presence would always feel warm, visible, intense. But now all you have is silence, delay, closed doors. And even though you believe, you're tired. Not of God, but of the waiting, of praying without answers, of walking with no clear signposts. I understand, and I'm not disappointed in you. I am the Spirit who hovers even in the void, who remains even when you doubt. I don't disappear when the lights go out. In fact, I draw closer. I walk at your pace. I listen to your silence. And right now, I need you to know this. Faith is not a feeling. It's your decision to keep walking, even when you can't see me. Let me take you back to a man who walked blindly for years, Abraham. I called him out of everything familiar, his land, his home, his identity. Go, I said. But I gave him no map, no schedule, no guarantee of comfort. Just a promise that I would be with him, that I would bless him, that I would make his descendants like the stars. And yet he waited. Years passed, decades, still no child, still no sign, just dry land and aging bones. Can you imagine what it felt like to keep believing when the facts screamed otherwise? Every year Sarah didn't conceive, every wrinkle that deepened, every mocking look from those around him. It was a test, not of God's power, but of Abraham's faith. But here's what made the heavens move. He kept walking, he kept building altars, he kept trusting a voice he couldn't explain. And when the promise finally arrived, it wasn't just a child. It was a testament, a living proof that faith is not about timing, it's about trust. And now I ask you, will you keep walking even when your heart is weary? There's a kind of faith that isn't pretty. It's not the kind people post about. It's raw, quiet, strained, but it's real. And heaven honors it, because I never asked you to feel strong every day. I never asked you to be perfect. I asked you to follow me, step by step, even when the road disappears beneath your feet. Remember the Israelites in the wilderness? I fed them with manna, but only enough for one day. Why? Because I wanted them to look up every morning and say, I still trust you. Not because of abundance, not because of visible blessings, but because they believed I would show up again. And I always did. I'm doing the same with you. You may not see what's ahead. You may not feel anything divine today, but that's not evidence of my absence. Sometimes I withdraw my visible hand so your spiritual eyes can open. I'm teaching you not just to survive, but to believe deeply, quietly, fully. So let me ask you something uncomfortable but necessary. What are you waiting for me to prove before you believe again? Do you need the money first, the healing, the open door, the apology, or can you worship before it arrives? The kind of faith I'm cultivating in you is the kind that can stand in the fire without seeing the rain. The kind that sings in prison like Paul and Silas, not because they saw the earthquake coming, but because they trusted me in chains. And do you know what happened when they sang? The walls shook, doors opened, not just for them, but for everyone around them. Your faith isn't just about you, it's unlocking something generational, something eternal, something that will outlive the silence you feel now. Because when you decide to believe in the dark, you are building a legacy in the spirit, and darkness cannot erase what faith has planted. If what I'm saying is piercing your heart, don't run from it. Let the tears come. Let the questions surface. I am not afraid of your honesty. I am the Spirit of truth, and sometimes the purest faith begins with, God, I believe, help my unbelief. Write that in the comments now. If you feel led, I will keep walking even when I don't see the way. That's not just a sentence. It's a breakthrough waiting to happen. I see how hard it's been. I see the prayers you've whispered that no one else knows about, the late-night thoughts, the mornings you didn't want to rise, and still, you're here, still listening, still hoping. That alone is victory. Let me tell you something sacred. The enemy fears your silent endurance more than your loudest worship. Because when everything around you says to quit, but you stay faithful, it's a declaration in the spirit that cannot be shaken. You're not surviving by accident. You're walking in quiet power. I know it hurts to walk when you don't see results. But your obedience is oil. Every step you take, even trembling, fills your lamp. And when the midnight hour comes, your flame will not go out. Because you trusted me when there was no reason to, you will be ready when my promise knocks. This is not the end of your story. It's the stretching, the soil, the root-growing season. What's invisible is not inactive. I'm working in places you cannot see. And soon, fruit will come. It always does for those who remain. So breathe. You don't need to understand everything today. You don't need to solve what's ahead. You just need to keep walking. One step, one prayer, one act of trust at a time. And when you do, you will discover something beautiful, that I was never waiting for you at the destination. I've been walking beside you the whole time, and now stay with me through this journey, because the next key will bring you deeper into the mystery of divine timing. We've spoken about walking without seeing, but what about when it feels like I'm not speaking at all? What does it mean when heaven is silent? That's the next door I'll open for you. But until then, let me leave you with this question. If you knew I was walking beside you even now, would you still be afraid of the dark? Key 3. Heaven's silence is not God's absence. It's the space where trust grows. You've been listening. You've been praying. You've been waiting. And yet, silence. You look around and see people testifying of open doors, answered prayers, and breakthroughs that came right on time. But your time hasn't come. Not yet. And in that, not yet, 1,000 thoughts try to invade your peace. Thoughts that say you've been forgotten, that maybe your prayer wasn't enough, that maybe I don't hear you at all. But I need you to pause right now, just for a moment, and lean in. Because what I'm about to whisper is not an explanation. It's an invitation to trust differently, not in what you feel, not in what you see, but in who I am, even when I seem quiet. There are seasons in your life where heaven feels loud. You sense me in every moment. You open the scriptures and they burn with clarity. You worship and my presence feels tangible. But then there are other seasons, seasons like now, where you search for me, and all you find is silence, no instructions, no reassurance, no confirmation, just silence. But listen closely, my silence is not my absence. The greatest roots are grown in the dark. The deepest faith is formed in silence. The kind of trust that holds you when nothing else can is born when you keep walking with me, even when I say nothing. You've asked questions. I've heard everyone. But there's one question I want to ask you. Can you still believe in me when I don't give you answers? Let me take you back to a woman who once stood in silence, waiting for me to move. Her name was Hannah. Her heart longed for a child. She prayed, she wept, she poured out her soul. And still, year after year, no response. Others around her mocked her barrenness. Even the priest misunderstood her desperation. She had every reason to give up, every reason to let bitterness take root. But she didn't. She returned to me, again and again. She came to my presence, not because she had answers, but because she believed in my heart, even when my hand seemed still, and when the time was right, not early, not late, but right. I opened her womb and gave her Samuel, a child who would change a nation. You see, silence is not abandonment. It is sometimes the sacred space between seed and harvest, between question and revelation, between the cry and the miracle. And I use it, not to hurt you, but to stretch you into someone who carries not only answers, but depth. Do you know what grows in silence? Worship without condition. Not the kind that depends on how you feel, not the kind that only rises when I say yes, but the kind that says, even here, even now, I believe you are good. Remember the story of Lazarus? His sisters, Mary and Martha, sent word to Jesus, "The one you love is sick." And I delayed, on purpose. Days passed. Their brother died. Their hearts broke. Silence reigned. From their view, I had failed. But when I arrived, I wasn't late. I was on time for something greater than healing. Resurrection. Some miracles require silence, because the silence prepares the soil of your soul to hold what's coming next. If I responded the moment you asked, your faith would be shallow, tied to results. But when you keep walking with me, when you keep showing up in the quiet, when you keep believing without noise, you begin to carry something eternal. Let me ask you again, what if silence is not the absence of my voice, but the space where my spirit strengthens your hearing? There's a kind of trust that grows in the dark that can never be taken from you. It's the trust that sustained Joseph in prison, David in caves, Paul in shipwrecks, Jesus in Gethsemane. And now, I am growing that same trust in you. You've been wondering why I haven't answered yet. But beloved, what if the silence is the answer? What if it's teaching you that your value isn't in how quickly prayers are answered, but in how deeply your heart is rooted in me? You've thought you were stuck, forgotten, left behind. But in truth, you are being formed. You are becoming the kind of person who carries my glory, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. I am not preparing your miracle. I'm preparing you to receive it, and that requires silence. But even now, in this quiet, I am not far. I am as close as your next breath, as near as the tears in your eyes, as present as the beating of your heart. I may not be loud, but I am here. Whisper this with me now. Even when you are silent, I will trust you. Write it in the comments as a declaration, a surrender, a step of faith into the unseen, because heaven hears you, I hear you, and your trust does not go unnoticed. It moves me. There is a river flowing even beneath the frozen ground, and your faith is melting the barriers you cannot yet see. Don't mistake delay for denial. Don't confuse silence with distance. I am the God who hides treasures in darkness, and you, my beloved, are standing on holy ground. If you're here, if you haven't turned away, it means your spirit is being awakened, and there is something sacred I want you to understand before we move on. I speak in silence through peace. I speak in silence through scripture. I speak in silence through people you encounter, moments you don't expect, stillness you don't know how to name. Your ears may not hear it yet, but your soul is already tuning in. Stay. Do not rush ahead. This journey isn't meant to be sprinted. It's meant to be absorbed, lived, breathed. And the next key will show you something many overlook, that what you're calling weakness might actually be where my power begins. But for now, rest in this. If I am silent, it's because I'm working deeper than you can see. And when I speak again, I know how clearly you will hear. Let your silence become sacred. Let your questions become altars. Let your waiting become worship. And let your soul know without a doubt, I have never left you. This is the kind of trust that transforms deserts into gardens. And in the next step, we will uncover what happens when your strength runs out and mine begins to rise. Key 4. When your strength ends, my power begins. You've been trying. I've seen it. You get up every morning with the weight of yesterday still on your chest. You put on the same face you wore yesterday, the strong one. You keep showing up for the world, for others, and sometimes even for me, all while something inside you feels like it's quietly falling apart. There are days when just getting through is your victory, days when the fight isn't loud, it's hidden. Behind the smile, behind the silence, behind the breath you hold just to keep the tears from falling. And you wonder, when will it get easier? When will the burden lift? You've whispered prayers that sounded more like sighs. You've told me I can't do this anymore, not out of rebellion but exhaustion, and I want to say this to your soul now, gently but clearly. It's okay that you've reached your limit, because I never asked you to carry this in your strength. There's something sacred that happens when your strength ends, something holy that most people avoid because it feels like failure. But in the kingdom, the end of your strength is not the end of the story. It's the doorway to mine. Let me remind you of Paul. You know his name, a man of fire, of zeal, of great purpose. And yet in his journey, he encountered a thorn, something painful, persistent, a weakness he couldn't fix. He pleaded with me 3 times. Take it away. But I didn't. Not because I didn't care, but because I wanted to show him something greater than relief. I told him, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And something shifted in him. He stopped running from the weakness and started embracing it. He said, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. Did you hear that? Rest on me. Not pass through, not touch and go, rest, like a weight of glory settling where the world saw only failure. And I want to do the same in you. You've been asking me to make you strong, but I've been waiting for you to stop depending on your own strength, because the miracle isn't that you keep going. The miracle is that I sustain you when you can't. You think reaching your breaking point disqualifies you, but it doesn't. It qualifies you for a different kind of power, not the kind that moves mountains with your voice, but the kind that keeps breathing when everything around you feels buried. There was a woman once. Her name isn't even recorded, but she had been bleeding for 12 years. Weak, isolated, considered unclean. No doctor could help. No prayer had healed her. But one day, she heard that Jesus was near, and though her body was drained, something inside her whispered, if I can just touch him, She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She reached out, tired, low to the ground, probably trembling, and touched the hem of his garment. That's all, and my power flowed through her, because power doesn't respond to performance. It responds to faith, even faith that is bruised, even faith that is quiet, even faith that's crawling. My child, you've been crawling, spiritually, emotionally, even physically, just trying to keep moving, and I honor that. I see every inch you've dragged yourself forward when no one else noticed. Every moment you said, God, I don't have much, but you can have what I do have. And that is where my power begins. Because when you let go of the image of being unshakable, when you admit you're tired and you bring your emptiness to me, I fill it. I don't just patch your wounds. I breathe life into them. I resurrect what's been fading, but I won't force my strength into places that are still pretending to be strong. That's why I allowed the breaking, not to destroy you, but to prepare you, to clear away the self-reliance, the fear, the pride, the pressure to always have it together, so that in the rawness of surrender, you could finally receive what only I can give. And what I give is not fragile. It doesn't break under pressure. It doesn't depend on mood or momentum. My power is steady. It holds when the world shakes. It shines when everything else fades. And it's available to you right now, if you're willing to stop pretending and start receiving. So let me ask you something that might feel vulnerable. What are you still trying to carry alone? What habit, memory, relationship, fear, expectation, or burden are you gripping with tired hands? Do you think I'll be disappointed if you admit you're overwhelmed? Do you think I'll turn away if you finally say, I'm not okay? I won't. I never have. In fact, it's in that confession that I draw closer. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the ones who know they need me. The ones who've stopped hiding their pain behind spiritual performance. The ones who dare to be honest enough to say, God, I'm weak, help me. That's when heaven opens. That's when my angels are assigned. That's when breakthrough begins. Because I don't pour living water into cups that are already full of self. I fill the empty. I raise the low. I empower the humble. So today, I invite you to stop striving. Not to quit, but to shift, to trade the pressure for peace, the control for communion. The striving for surrender. Whisper this, I don't have to be strong, I just have to stay close. And if that's the cry of your heart, write it in the comments right now as a declaration that you're no longer walking alone, no longer pretending, no longer carrying what I already paid to lift. You're stepping into something greater, not because you feel strong, but because I am. You see, when I chose you, I already knew your limitations. I knew the nights you'd collapse. I knew the tears you'd hide. I knew the moments you'd doubt yourself, and I still said yes. I still called you. I still put eternity inside your bones, because I don't need perfect vessels. I need surrendered ones, people who will walk even with a limp, people who will pray even with a whisper, people who will trust even with questions. And I know that's you. You wouldn't still be here if it wasn't. You are tired, but you're still hungry. You feel weak, but you're still listening. And that moves me. So here is my promise to you. As your strength fades, my strength will rise. It won't always be loud. It won't always look miraculous, but it will be faithful. And soon you'll look back and realize the moments you thought you were breaking were actually the moments I was rebuilding you, stronger, wiser, deeper, more dependent on me than ever before. And that is where real power lives. So breathe now. Let the weight slide off your shoulders. You were never meant to carry the impossible alone. That's what I'm here for. That's why I am called the helper. And the next key The next revelation I want to share with you is this. Sometimes what you call delay is actually divine protection. But before we open that door, ask yourself one final question. What if the part of you that's been falling apart is the part I'm finally rebuilding in my image? Key 5. What feels like delay might be divine protection. You've been waiting. Maybe for a door to open, for a prayer to be answered, for someone to return, for healing to arrive, for clarity to finally break through the fog. And somewhere deep inside there's this ache, like time is passing too fast and your miracle is walking too slow. You've said it quietly in your heart. Why hasn't it happened yet? And maybe, even more quietly, God, are you still coming? And today, I, the Spirit who sees all, want to whisper something to the part of you that's grown restless. It hasn't happened yet, not because I've forgotten you, but because I'm protecting you. There are things I've kept from reaching you, not to punish you, but to preserve you. There are prayers I've delayed in answering, not to hurt you, but to grow you. There are people I didn't allow to return because I saw the ending you could not. You see time through the lens of now. I see it from eternity. And when I say not yet, it's never out of cruelty. It's out of wisdom. Because I love you too much to give you something too soon. Let me show you something sacred. Do you remember the Israelites? After centuries of slavery, I delivered them with signs and wonders. I split seas, sent plagues, broke chains. And yet, when they left Egypt, I didn't take them on the shortest route to the promised land. No, I took them the long way. Why? Because I knew what they didn't, that the shorter path passed through a land of war, a battle they weren't ready to face. If they had seen it, they would have turned back. So I delayed them to protect them. I led them by cloud and by fire, step by step, until they could grow into the people who would inherit the promise. My delay wasn't rejection. It was protection. And it still is. Some delays are shields you'll only understand later. You prayed for that job, but I saw the pressure that would have crushed your spirit. You asked for that person, but I saw the heartbreak they were carrying and how it would have wounded you. You wanted that door to open, but I knew that what waited behind it was a version of success that would have pulled you away from me. You wanted a yes. I gave you a wait, and because of that, you are still here. Still listening, still soft enough to hear my voice. You see, I'm not just answering prayers, I'm forming a heart that trusts even when the clock ticks louder, a heart that stays open even when nothing makes sense, a heart that chooses me even when I seem slow. Do you remember Martha and Mary? Their brother Lazarus was sick. They sent word to Jesus, knowing he could heal. But I delayed. I waited, and while they waited, Lazarus died. Their hearts broke. They couldn't understand why I stayed away, why I didn't rush to rescue them. And when I finally arrived, Martha ran to me and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died." But what they didn't know, what I whispered through tears at the tomb, was this. I wasn't late. I was preparing resurrection, because sometimes I allow what you thought had to live to die, so that I can show you a greater glory, a miracle not just of healing, but of bringing dead things back to life. You think you're waiting for something to happen, but what if the delay is the womb for something greater than you ever imagined, something that takes longer, not because it's impossible, but because it's eternal. If I answered every prayer the moment you asked, your roots would remain shallow. Your joy would depend on outcomes. Your faith would float on emotions. But I am not growing shallow believers. I'm growing unshakable ones. Believers who walk by faith, not by sight. Believers who praise when the room is quiet and the doors are closed. Believers who understand that delay is never denial in the hands of a faithful God. Let me ask you something tender now. What are you calling abandonment that might actually be my mercy? You've said nothing is moving, but I say everything is aligning. You've said God has gone silent, but I say I'm still writing. You've said I missed my moment, but I say I'm protecting your future. There's a reason I'm keeping you hidden. There's a reason the door hasn't opened yet. I'm not just working on circumstances, I'm working on you. Because when the promise finally arrives, I want you ready. I want you whole. I want you strong enough to carry what's coming without losing yourself in it. The waiting room is not a punishment. It's a sanctuary. And if you let me, I will transform this space into a garden of intimacy. You'll learn to love me not just for what I do, but for who I am. That's the miracle behind the miracle, not just the breakthrough, but the bond we've formed in the waiting. Let me speak to your inner world now, to the calendar that feels too full of empty days, to the dreams that feel frozen in place, to the questions that still have no answers. I see them, I see you, and I promise you, nothing has been wasted. Not one tear, not one silent prayer. Not one moment you kept walking when you could have turned back. They are seeds, and I am the God of harvest. So breathe now, not because everything is fixed, but because I'm still in control. You're not late, you're not lost, you're not forgotten. You are exactly where I can speak most clearly, in the stillness, and I'm whispering now more clearly than ever. Trust me, this delay is protection. Write this in the comments as a declaration of faith. If it's not happening yet, it must be for my good. Let those words be your anchor, not a resignation, but a resolution. Not a surrender to fear, but a surrender to wisdom. Because you are not just waiting, you are becoming. You are becoming someone who walks in divine timing, who flows with heaven's pace, who trusts that my no, my wait, and even my silence are not rejections, but redirections. And as we move forward, the next key will show you what happens when you stop begging for doors and start building altars. But before we go there, pause and reflect. What if the greatest miracle I'm doing right now is inside you, not around you? Key 6. Stop waiting for a door. Start building an altar. You've spent so much time standing in front of closed doors, praying, knocking, hoping something will move, something will open. You've asked me, when will the opportunity come? When will the next chapter begin? When will I finally see what I've been waiting for? But I want to ask you something different, not about your future, but about your foundation. While you're asking me to open a door, have you built me an altar where you are now? Because I don't just dwell in breakthroughs, I dwell in hearts that make space for me before the breakthrough ever comes. An altar is not a stage. It's not a place you build to be seen. It's the place where things die and where something holy begins to live again. It's where you bring me your most sacred things, your dreams, your fears, your questions, your pride, your plans, and you say, even if you never open another door, I will still call you good. You see, doors are external, but altars are eternal. When you chase open doors without building altars, your faith becomes transactional, built on conditions, deadlines, and expectations. But when you build altars, your faith becomes transformational, rooted in surrender, intimacy, and trust. Let me take you back to Abraham, the man who walked with me through the unknown. He waited for years to receive the child I promised. And when Isaac came, his miracle, his joy, his answer, I asked something that made no sense. Offer him to me. Abraham didn't argue. He didn't delay. He took his son to the mountain and built an altar, not because he wanted to lose Isaac, but because he trusted me enough to believe that even if I asked for everything, I would still be faithful. And right there, on that mountain of surrender, I provided, not before the altar, not before the climb, not before the heartbreak, but in the moment of offering. Some of you are standing before locked doors asking, why isn't anything happening? But I'm asking you, where is your altar? Where have you laid down your control? Where have you chosen me over outcomes? Where have you said, even here, even now, I worship? Because what I'm doing in your life isn't just about what you will receive. It's about who you are becoming, and altars shape people that doors never could. You want my fire to fall, but fire only falls on sacrifice. You want my voice to speak, but I speak most clearly in surrendered places. You want to feel my power, but my power doesn't visit performance. It rests on presence, on stillness, on trust. So today I'm asking something that may feel uncomfortable. Stop knocking for a moment, stop striving, stop reaching for what's next, and look around you. The floor beneath your feet, the breath in your lungs, the ache in your chest. This is holy ground, not because it feels good, but because this is where I want to meet you. You think the breakthrough is over there, in another season, another opportunity, another chapter. But I'm telling you, I'm here. I'm here in the quiet space between disappointment and promise. I'm here in the prayers you whisper through clenched teeth. I'm here when you lift your hands with no words left to say. I'm here in the middle of the waiting, the frustration, the stillness. And I'm asking you, will you build me an altar here, not just with songs, but with surrender, not just with tears, but with trust, not just with dreams, but with your willingness to lay those dreams down and say, even this, Lord, I place it in your hands. Because that is worship, not the sound, the surrender. And when you begin to live that way, not chasing results, but carrying reverence, everything shifts. The atmosphere around you changes, because now you're not waiting on a door. You've become a dwelling place, a space I can fill. And I don't just open doors for those who wait. I reveal myself to those who worship in the waiting. So let me say this plainly, and let it echo through your spirit. The breakthrough is not found behind the next door. It's found on the altar you build today. If this is resonating with your soul, if you know this isn't just a message but a moment, write this in the comments. Holy Spirit, I will build you an altar here. Not because you figured it all out, but because your heart is choosing to honor me in the middle of the unknown. I see every time you keep showing up in prayer when the answer hasn't changed. I see every act of obedience no one else claps for. I see every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, every time you say yes to me instead of yes to comfort. Every one of those moments is a stone on your altar. And I promise you, what you give to me in secret, I will bless in the open. But don't serve me for the blessing. Serve me because you love me. Let your altar be a love letter, not a shopping list. Let it be a resting place, not a transaction. Let it be the place where you stop asking, when will the door open? And begin to say, thank you, Lord, that you're here, even before it does. You are not stuck. You are being rooted. You are not late. You are being aligned. You are not overlooked. You are being prepared for something greater than a single opportunity. You are being prepared to carry glory. And that doesn't happen at the threshold of a door. It happens at the foot of an altar. So breathe deep, take your eyes off the clock, and return your heart to worship, because the next key, the one we'll open together soon, will show you how gratitude, not just waiting, unlocks the supernatural in impossible places. But for now, I'll leave you with this whisper. What if the door you've been waiting for will swing open the moment you stop watching it and turn to worship instead? Key 7. Gratitude in the hidden places unlocks supernatural power. You've said thank you before. You've lifted your hands in church. You've prayed over meals. You've whispered gratitude for answered prayers. But I want to ask you something deeper, not about the words you say, but about the posture of your soul. Can you give thanks, even here, even now, even in the hidden, unfinished, unseen place? Gratitude isn't just about what you say when you receive something. It's about who you become when nothing seems to change, when the storm doesn't stop, the prayer isn't answered, and the door remains shut. And still, you say, thank you. That's not performance. That's power. Because true gratitude isn't loud. It's not about appearances. It's born in the quietest corners of your heart, where no one's watching and nothing looks like it's working, and you choose to praise anyway. That kind of gratitude moves heaven. Do you remember the 10 lepers? They called out to Jesus from a distance, desperate, isolated, rejected by society and marked by shame. They asked for mercy, and I answered. I told them to go, show themselves to the priests. And as they walked, still infected, still hurting, they were healed. But only one returned. Only one stopped walking long enough to fall at my feet and say, thank you. Not just for what I did, but for who I was. Not just because he was clean, but because he realized the miracle wasn't just healing, it was me. And to him, I said something I didn't say to the others. Your faith has made you whole. Not just healed, whole. Because there is a deeper miracle that's released when gratitude becomes your lifestyle, not just your reaction. The others got their skin restored, but he got his soul restored. And I long to do the same for you. But it begins in the hidden places. Not on platforms, not in public worship, not when the answer comes, but here, in the place where things feel uncertain, and the only thing you're sure of is me. Let me show you what that looks like. There was a moment, just before one of the greatest miracles ever recorded, when my son stood before a crowd of thousands, hungry, weary, expecting, and all the disciples had was a small lunch, a few loaves, a couple of fish, not enough. From their perspective, it was a limitation, but from heaven's perspective, it was a seed. And do you know what Jesus did before the multiplication came? He gave thanks. He lifted lack and released gratitude. He didn't wait for the abundance. He didn't complain about the crowd. He didn't say, this isn't enough. He said, Father, I thank you. And in that moment of pure gratitude, not for what was seen, but for what was believed, the supernatural was released. Thousands were fed, and there were leftovers. Do you understand what I'm saying? Gratitude transforms scarcity into overflow. But it doesn't start when the miracle appears. It starts when you hold something small, something fragile, something that looks like not enough, and you lift it up anyway. You say, thank you, God, that you are still good. Thank you, even though I don't understand. Thank you for breath in my lungs. Thank you that you are near. Gratitude is a weapon, one the enemy cannot understand. Because while he expects your silence to turn to bitterness, your delay to turn to despair, your weakness to turn to surrender, instead, you worship, you praise, you thank, and the gates of hell cannot hold back a soul that gives thanks in the dark. But I know how hard it can be. I see you. You've given thanks while wiping your tears. You've lifted songs with a heart that was breaking. You've chosen joy when your mind was flooded with fear, and I want you to know, none of it has been wasted. Every thank you spoken in pain has become a seed in the spirit. Every praise whispered through anxiety has become a declaration of war against the lies of the enemy. And every moment you chose gratitude over grumbling, you've been unlocking something in the supernatural realm that you can't yet see. Let me speak into the core of your heart now. You are not empty, you are being filled. Every hidden yes, every quiet surrender, every grateful thought in a desert season, it is forming in you a well of living water. And soon, it will overflow. Because I honor those who honor me not just when things go right, but when everything seems wrong and they worship anyway. Gratitude isn't natural in the flesh, it's supernatural in the spirit. And that's why it unlocks things no effort ever could. You've tried everything, haven't you? You've strategized, pushed, pleaded, knocked. But what if what you need to do now is thank? Not in denial, not in false positivity, but in faith. Faith that says, if you never do another thing, you've already done enough. Faith that says, even in this, you are working. Faith that says, I don't need to understand to believe. And if this is what your soul is feeling, even if your mind is still catching up, write this in the comments. Thank you, God. I trust you even here. Let that declaration become incense in the spirit. Because this kind of worship, hidden, uncelebrated, authentic, it changes the atmosphere around you. Do you know why? Because gratitude recenters your heart. It takes your eyes off what's missing and places them back on me. It shifts your prayers from give me to be with me. It anchors you in the now, where I am always present, always speaking, always sustaining. Some of you have been walking through a wilderness, waiting for the next direction. But the next direction isn't forward. It's deeper, into a posture of worship, a lifestyle of thanksgiving, a rhythm of remembering that I was good in the storm, that I was close in the silence, that I was enough in the waiting. And when that truth takes root, when your spirit starts to echo gratitude without needing a reason, miracles flow. Not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. Because gratitude doesn't always change your circumstances first. It changes you. And when you are changed, you're no longer chasing a move of God. You've become one, a living altar, a vessel of glory, a carrier of peace in chaotic places, a testimony, not just of what I've done, but of who I am. So I ask you now, will you build your life on gratitude, not just in the answered prayers, but in the unspoken ones? Will you thank me not just when you're on the mountaintop, but when you're in the valley too? Because if you can thank me in the valley, you'll discover that I've been building rivers there all along. And the next key, the one we'll unlock together soon, is this. There is a breakthrough that only comes when you learn to worship through the walls. But for now, let this whisper remain in you. What if your most powerful prayer today isn't God, change this, but God, thank you for holding me through this. Key 8. Breakthrough comes when you worship through the walls. I know what it feels like to hit a wall. You've done everything you know how to do. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've believed, you've obeyed. And still, nothing moves, nothing shifts, nothing seems to open. There's an invisible barrier between you and the promise, between you and the peace your soul longs for. And maybe you've started to wonder, did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? No, you didn't miss me. You're exactly where I want you to be. And the wall you're facing isn't your punishment, it's your invitation, because not every wall is meant to be knocked down by effort. Some walls fall through worship. There's a moment recorded in Scripture, you've probably heard it, where my people stood in front of one of the most fortified cities they had ever seen. Jericho, thick walls, strong gates, armed guards. From the outside, it was impenetrable. And yet, I had already declared, I have given you this city. But my instructions made no sense to the natural mind. I didn't tell them to attack. I told them to walk, to circle the wall in silence for 6 days. To hold their peace when they were used to fighting, to obey even when nothing appeared to be happening. And on the 7th day, I told them to lift their voices, not in complaint, not in panic, but in worship, in a shout of praise. And when they did, the walls didn't crack, they collapsed. Why? Because worship is not passive, it's warfare. And when you worship in the face of what looks impossible, you release my presence to do what your strength never could. That's what I'm teaching you now. You've hit something that won't move through logic. It won't move through manipulation. It won't move through striving. It will move when you begin to praise me as if it's already done. Even when you feel nothing, even when the atmosphere around you stays the same, even when your emotions scream it's not working, that's when worship becomes real, because real worship isn't based on feelings, it's based on truth, the truth that I am still good, still sovereign, still fighting for you behind the scenes, still surrounding you with songs of deliverance, even when you don't hear the melody yet. Let me ask you something personal now. What have you allowed to silence your worship? Is it fear, disappointment, the delay, the heaviness of unanswered questions? I understand. I'm not asking you to pretend those things aren't real, but I am asking you to lift your voice anyway. Because when you begin to worship through the pain, through the confusion, through the tension, through the wall, something in the spirit shifts. Not always outside you, but always inside you. Worship realigns your vision. It reminds your soul of who I am, not just what I do. It makes the atmosphere of heaven break into the heaviness of earth. And sometimes that's the real miracle. Not that the situation changes immediately, but that you are changed in the middle of it. That your fear gives way to courage, that your despair gives way to peace, that your panic gives way to rest. You stop striving and start trusting, because you realize the wall was never there to stop you. It was there to reveal me, to show you that what I can do through praise is far more powerful than what you could do through pressure. Do you remember Paul and Silas? Beaten, bleeding, thrown into prison. Everything around them said, "You've failed." But at midnight, the darkest hour, they lifted a song. Not because they were rescued, not because they felt strong, but because they believed I was still worthy. And as they sang, I shook the foundations. The chains broke, the doors opened, not just for them, but for every prisoner listening. That's the kind of worship I'm calling you to now, not the kind that waits for the outcome, but the kind that changes the outcome by releasing heaven on earth. There is a wall in your life that will only fall when your worship rises. So I ask you, softly but clearly, will you sing again? Even with a trembling voice, even with questions still unanswered, even with circumstances still uncertain. Not just to get something, but to give me something, your heart, your hope, your hallelujah. Write this in the comments if your spirit agrees. Even in front of the wall, I will worship. Let that become a declaration in the realm of the spirit. Because the enemy cannot stand against a child of God who sings in the middle of battle. He expects fear, he expects doubt, he expects silence. But when you lift a praise instead, you remind him of who I am, you remind yourself, and you realign the atmosphere of your life with the truth of my presence. And I promise you this, I inhabit the praises of my people, not their performance, not their perfection, their praise. So no matter what the wall is made of, grief, shame, regret, uncertainty, let your praise rise higher. It may not fall immediately, but the shaking has already begun, because you're choosing to partner with heaven instead of fear. And the sound of that choice echoes louder than any chain, any closed door, any voice of the enemy. I'm not asking you for volume. I'm asking you for honesty. I'm asking for worship that's real, even if it's quiet, even if it's raw. Even if it's just a whisper, you are still God and you are still good, because that whisper can move what no shouting ever could. It can bring down walls you didn't even know were still standing in your heart. The walls of unforgiveness, the walls of comparison, the walls of self-hatred, the walls of doubt. One by one they begin to crumble, not through force but through faith expressed in praise. This is the power of worship. Not to impress, but to invade with my presence. So now, don't wait for someone else to lead. You lead in your room, in your car, in your journal, in your tears. Let praise be your response when the wall whispers, you're stuck. Let worship be your reply when the enemy says, nothing is changing. Because I assure you, something is. Even now, as you listen to my voice, I am shaking what has tried to hold you, not just around you, but within you. So as we prepare to step into the next key, a truth about what happens when you surrender what you cannot fix, remember this: some walls fall with words, others only fall with worship. And yours? It's already starting to tremble. I'll leave you with this question. What if your breakthrough doesn't begin with something changing, but with a song rising from within? Key 9. Surrender is the door to the miracle. You can't manufacture. You've tried everything. You've prayed, fasted, waited, declared, believed. You've spoken to the mountain and still it hasn't moved. You've done what others told you. You've obeyed what you heard. You've stood firm while the ground shook under your feet. And still, the change hasn't come the way you hoped. Not yet. So now, you're standing here, holding what feels like the last piece of your strength, wondering what else you need to do, wondering if more effort will bring the breakthrough. Wondering if just one more step, one more fight, one more fast might finally unlock it. But beloved, the miracle you seek doesn't live on the other side of your effort. It lives on the other side of your surrender. There's a point in the spiritual journey where striving becomes a cage, where faith becomes performance, where obedience becomes pressure, and the soul that once danced in my presence becomes a worker, trying to earn what was always meant to be a gift. That's why I brought you here, not to make you try harder, but to invite you to release. I know what you're carrying, the pressure to figure it all out, the weight of holding others together, the fear of letting go because it feels like failure. But I tell you now, not with anger, not with force, but with love deeper than your weariness, put it down. Surrender doesn't mean you stop believing. It means you stop controlling. It means you hand me the pen and let me write the next line. It means you trust that I know the way, even when the road looks like nothing you imagined. There's a story you know well, of a woman who had tried everything. The issue of blood, 12 years of pain, 12 years of effort, doctors, money, remedies, all of it gone. And one day she heard about Jesus, and in the middle of the crowd, she didn't shout, she didn't demand, she simply reached. With trembling hands and tired faith, she surrendered the idea that she had to fix it herself. She let go of her reputation, her fear, her shame, her timeline, and in one act of surrender, she touched the hem of his garment, and power flowed. Not because she earned it, but because she finally let go of trying to deserve it. That's what I'm asking of you today, to stop believing the lie that says, if I do enough, then maybe God will. You don't have to chase me. I've already come near. You don't have to impress me. I already delight in you. You don't have to prove yourself. I already chose you, but I cannot fill what is still clinging to its own strength. And so I whisper now, as gently as breath, let it fall. Let the fear fall. Let the self-reliance fall. Let the need to understand everything fall. Let the version of the future you built in your mind fall, not to lose, but to receive. Because surrender is not the end of the story. It's the place where my story begins to breathe inside yours. Let me show you what it looks like. Do you remember Jesus in Gethsemane, alone, on his knees, with the weight of the world on his shoulders? He didn't deny the pain. He didn't suppress the fear. He prayed, "Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me." But then he surrendered. "Not my will, but yours be done." And in that moment, not when he rose, not when he performed miracles, but in that hidden, anguished surrender, salvation was sealed, because every true miracle begins where the will is laid down. Where the hands that have tried to hold everything finally open, where the soul whispers, "Even if it doesn't look the way I hoped, I trust you." That's not weakness. That's holy courage. And I am inviting you into that place now, not with pressure, but with peace, not with shame, but with gentleness. I'm not angry that you've tried so hard, but now I want you to stop, not because you've failed, but because I'm ready to do what only I can do. You've exhausted the natural. Now let me introduce the supernatural. But I need space, not because I lack power, but because love never forces itself. I wait for surrender. I wait for the invitation. And if your heart is ready, not just to speak, but to release, write this in the comments. Holy Spirit, I surrender what I can't control. Let it be more than a phrase. Let it be your new posture, not clenched fists, but open hands, not frantic prayers, but quiet trust, not bargaining, but resting. You are not the rescuer. You are not the source. You are not the solution. You are the beloved, and I am your source, your answer, your promise keeper, your rest. And when you surrender, you're not giving up. You're giving into peace, into my pace, into the rhythm of grace that no striving can imitate. The miracle may still take time, but now you are aligned. And when you are aligned, you are no longer swimming against the current of my spirit. You are flowing with me. And that's where breakthrough is born, not in your struggle, but in your surrender. Do you remember the widow with the jar of oil? The prophet told her to pour what little she had, even though it wasn't enough in her eyes. And as she poured, the oil multiplied, not before, while she surrendered her logic, while she acted in faith, while she let go of what made sense. The miracle moved with her surrender. And the same is true for you. You don't need more resources. You don't need a better plan. You need an open heart that says, whatever it looks like, I choose your way. And when you say that, really say it, the weight begins to lift, not because the situation changed, but because you did. You've stopped striving, you've started trusting, and that is where my power flows. So breathe now. You're not falling behind. You're falling into me. And in this place, this soft, sacred surrender, I will speak again. I will guide again. I will carry you again. And the next key, the one we will open together soon, is this. Obedience is no longer heavy when it flows from love. But until then, I leave you with this whisper. What if the miracle you're waiting for is waiting for you to let go? Key 10. Obedience flows freely when it's rooted in love, not pressure. I see your heart. I see how much you want to follow me, how deeply you long to get it right. Not out of obligation, not out of fear, but because something inside you knows that my way is better. Still, somewhere along the journey, obedience began to feel heavy, like a burden, like a list of expectations you're trying to meet, but always falling short. You tell yourself, if I were stronger, I'd obey more easily. If I had more faith, I wouldn't struggle so much. If I truly loved God, I wouldn't hesitate. And I want to whisper something now, gently but clearly, to the tired part of you. Obedience was never meant to come from pressure. It was always meant to flow from love. You were never created to follow me out of fear of rejection. You were made to walk with me because your heart knows mine, because you trust me, because you love me, because you've discovered that nothing satisfies like my presence. Yes, I call for obedience. I always have, but not the kind that crushes. The kind that sets you free. The kind that doesn't force you forward, but invites you deeper. You don't obey to earn my love. You obey because you've already received it. And the more you understand that, the more joyful, natural, and effortless obedience becomes. Let me take you back to a moment before the cross, a quiet conversation between my son and those he called friends. He said something that still echoes now, like a gentle breeze in the soul. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Not if you fear me, not if you want to impress me, if you love me. That's the root. Because love is the soil where obedience grows without striving. Love is what turns I have to into I want to. It's what transforms sacrifice into joy. It's what makes surrender feel like safety, not slavery. So if obedience has felt hard lately, don't try harder. Come closer. Let me love you back into alignment, because when your heart is full of my love, resistance melts, walls fall, your yes becomes softer, quicker, truer, not because you're forcing yourself to comply, but because you're flowing with who I've made you to be. A child who hears their father's voice and responds with trust. Let me show you how this works. Do you remember Peter? Bold, passionate, always ready to act. He told Jesus, "Even if all fall away, I will never deny you." And yet, on the night of fear, when the pressure came, he did deny 3 times, not because he didn't love me, but because his obedience was still fueled by impulse, not intimacy. He hadn't yet been anchored in the love that restores, the love that waits on the shore after the failure, prepares breakfast, and asks only one thing: do you love me? 3 times Jesus asked him that question, not to condemn, but to heal, not to punish, but to rebuild. Not to shame, but to shift his obedience from pressure to love. And when Peter finally answered from the depth of that broken, honest place, "Lord, you know I love you," Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." In other words, now you're ready. Now that you love me more than the image of your strength, now that you've been humbled into grace, now that your love is not loud but true, now follow me. That's where real obedience begins. Not in the confidence of your own ability, but in the quiet surrender of a heart anchored in my affection. You don't have to force obedience when you know you're loved. You don't have to earn your place when you realize you never lost it. You don't have to fear falling again when you understand that my hand is already extended. So let me ask you now, what if obedience isn't about proving your devotion, but about expressing your connection? You've made obedience too hard because you've believed it's a ladder. Climb high enough and maybe you'll be accepted. But in my kingdom, obedience isn't a ladder. It's a river. It flows best when the heart is surrendered, when the weight is released, when the soul is resting in love. I'm not asking you to obey out of fear of what happens if you don't. I'm asking you to obey because you trust that what I say is always for your good, because I am not a taskmaster, I'm your Father. And my commandments, they are not burdens, they are invitations to life, to freedom, to peace, to clarity. Even the hard ones, forgive, wait, let go, step out, are not meant to crush you. They're meant to lead you into wide spaces. So if you feel resistance, bring it to me. Let's talk about it. There is no shame in struggle. There is only danger in silence. I'd rather you bring me your hesitation than pretend you're fine, because I don't want your performance, I want you. And when you bring me your real self, with your doubts, your stumbles, your fears, I can show you the kind of love that softens rebellion, quiets striving, and draws you into joyful surrender. And that's where obedience becomes powerful. That's where your yes shakes spiritual atmospheres, because it's no longer forced. It's faithful, it's rooted, it's lasting. Let me speak to the part of you that's been afraid of falling short. You can't outrun my grace. You can't disappoint me out of my call on your life. And you don't have to earn what I've already given. I'm not pacing the floor, waiting for you to finally be good enough. I'm sitting beside you in this moment, asking one simple question: do you love me? If your answer is yes, even a trembling, uncertain yes, then you're ready. You're ready to obey from love. You're ready to follow me without pressure. You're ready to build not from fear of failure, but from the joy of fellowship. Write this in the comments if your heart agrees. Holy Spirit, help me obey from love, not fear. Let it be your prayer, not of perfection, but of pursuit. And when that becomes your cry, obedience is no longer heavy. It becomes holy. Because now, it's not about checking the right boxes. It's about walking closely with me. And when you walk closely with me, obedience becomes your rhythm. Not because it's easy, but because I'm with you in it. You're no longer obeying for my love. You're obeying from it, and that changes everything. The next key we'll unlock together will take this truth even deeper, into the realm of identity. Because once you stop obeying from pressure, I want to show you who you really are in my presence. But until then, I leave you with this: obedience birthed in love can go where performance never could. Key 11. Identity is the foundation, where confidence and clarity are born. You've heard voices your whole life, some loud, some subtle, some outside of you, some deep within, voices telling you who you are and who you're not. You're not enough. You're too much. You always mess it up. You'll never be like them. You're unqualified. You're unwanted. You're invisible. Poor you. And over time, without even realizing it, those voices built a false identity, one made of shame, performance, fear, and comparison. An identity that smiles on the surface but trembles underneath. That tries hard, but always doubts. That rises and falls with people's approval, or with your latest success or failure. But I'm here now, and I need to tell you something sacred. That's not who you are. None of it. Not the labels others put on you, not the mistakes you've made, not the roles you've filled to feel valuable, not the wounds that still echo, not the titles you've worn to be accepted, not even the version of you that people praise, if it's not rooted in me. I didn't create you to live as a collection of survival strategies. I didn't breathe life into your lungs so you could spend your days trying to prove your worth. You are not an accident. You are not an afterthought. You are not barely enough. You are mine. I knit you together with intention. I formed you with design. I marked you with purpose before you ever took your first step, and before you can walk boldly in anything I've called you to, before you can discern my voice, carry my fire, or obey with peace, you must first come home to your true identity. Not what the world named you, what I named you: chosen, beloved, secure, redeemed, son, daughter, image bearer, co-heir with Christ, the dwelling place of my spirit. This isn't religious language, it's eternal truth. And if you don't know who you are, you will spend your life chasing clarity and confidence in all the wrong places. You'll think your calling is something to earn, when really it's something to receive. You'll look to other people to affirm you, and when they don't, you'll shrink. You'll expect titles to validate you, and when they're stripped away, you'll unravel. You'll base your value on how others treat you, and every slight will feel like a storm. But identity that comes from me is different. It doesn't shift when the season does. It doesn't fade when the applause stops. It doesn't weaken when people walk away. It doesn't depend on how visible you are. It's steady, anchored, eternal. And it becomes the place where true confidence lives, not arrogance, not false bravado, not fake strength, but the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are because they know whose they are. Let me show you what that looks like. When Jesus was baptized, the heavens opened. My voice thundered, not with instructions, not with commands, but with identity. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Did you notice? He hadn't performed a miracle yet. He hadn't preached a sermon. He hadn't healed a single person. But I declared who he was, and that was enough. His ministry didn't begin with power. It began with identity. And so must yours, because identity grounds you. It tells you where you start from, not where you're trying to arrive. When the enemy tempted Jesus in the wilderness, his first words were aimed at that identity. If you really are the Son of God. The battle wasn't just about hunger or pride. It was about belonging, and the same is true for you. Your greatest spiritual warfare won't be around your gifts. It will be around your identity. Because if the enemy can get you to doubt who you are, he doesn't need to steal your future. You'll surrender it yourself. But when you're rooted in me, you don't chase attention. You carry peace. You don't fear rejection. You stand secure. You don't bend for approval. You walk in truth. You move with clarity. You love without agenda. You obey without hesitation, because you're not building your identity on shifting sand. You're building on the solid rock of my love. And that changes everything. So let me ask you now, whose voice has been shaping your identity? The one from your childhood, the one from your failures, the one from religion, the one from culture, or mine? Because I still speak like I did that day by the river, with tenderness, with power, with affirmation. You are my child, and I am pleased with you. Not because you've earned it, but because you're mine. And if you can receive that, not just hear it, not just quote it, but receive it, you'll begin to live from a different place. A place where confidence is no longer fragile. A place where clarity doesn't come from circumstances, but from communion. Because when you know who you are, you stop living for identity and start living from it. You don't serve to be seen. You serve because you're secure. You don't worship to get something. You worship because you're already loved. You don't obey to gain status. You obey because you belong. And that is the kind of sonship I'm calling you into. Not religious striving, but intimate belonging. Write this in the comments if your spirit agrees. Holy Spirit, remind me who I am. Because this is the journey, not to become someone you're not, but to return to who you were always meant to be. Before the wounds, before the lies, before the pressure, before the fear, you were mine, and you still are. I don't want you to spend your life building a name. I want you to rest in the name I've already given you. I want you to stop reaching for identity and start receiving it. Because once that shift happens, once your identity becomes rooted in my love, you'll begin to see yourself the way I see you. And when that happens, nothing can shake you. Not rejection, not delay, not failure, not silence. You'll know who you are, and you'll move with unshakable peace. That's what's next. That's the key you now hold in your hands, because from this place, everything else begins to flow. Your calling, your clarity, your confidence, your freedom. Not from effort, from identity, from being mine. The next key will build on this. We'll talk about how your voice in the Spirit becomes powerful when it's no longer fueled by insecurity, but by identity. But until then, let me leave you with this. What if you stopped trying to be who others expect you to be and fully became who I already know you are? Key 12. Your voice has power when it flows from identity, not insecurity. You've been silent for too long, not just in your words, but in your authority. You've doubted what you carry. You've second-guessed the sound of your spirit. You've watched others speak boldly while your voice trembled with fear. Fear of saying it wrong, fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough. But I didn't fill you with my spirit to remain hidden behind hesitation. I didn't breathe fire into your soul for it to stay buried beneath timidity. I gave you a voice, not for attention, not for applause, but for impact. A voice that doesn't echo insecurity but releases heaven. A voice that doesn't repeat fear but declares freedom. A voice that doesn't manipulate, dominate, or impress, but reveals truth, love, and life. You were born with a sound, and the enemy has been after it since the beginning. He's not just afraid of your faith. He's afraid of what happens when your faith becomes audible. Because when a child of God starts to speak from a place of identity, when their words are rooted not in performance but in presence, the atmosphere responds. Mountains begin to move. Lies begin to break. Chains begin to loosen, not because the voice is loud, but because the source is pure. Do you remember the valley of dry bones? A desolate place, lifeless, hopeless. Bones scattered across the ground like the ruins of a promise, the leftovers of a lost battle. And then I brought Ezekiel there. I didn't tell him to cry. I didn't tell him to wish. I told him to speak. Prophesy to these bones, I said. Say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Oh, and when he obeyed, when he used his voice not from his mind but from my spirit, the bones began to come together. Tendons, flesh, breath, life returned, not because Ezekiel was powerful, but because he spoke my word from a place of obedience. That's what I'm calling you into. Not just to speak, but to speak from the center of who you are in me. Because when identity and voice are aligned, your words no longer echo your wounds. They release my will. Let me ask you something now. What have you allowed to silence your voice? Was it rejection, criticism, the shame of your past, the pressure to sound spiritual enough, the comparison to others? I understand. I see the rooms where you bit your tongue because your words didn't feel worthy. I see the moments where you heard me clearly, but fear stole your voice before it could be released. But I'm here to remind you, your voice isn't powerful because it's perfect. It's powerful because I live in you. You don't need eloquence. You need obedience. You don't need to be articulate. You need to be aligned. And when your voice comes from a heart anchored in truth, not in the shifting winds of opinion, not in the waves of insecurity, but in the solid rock of your identity, every word becomes a weapon against darkness. It's time to reclaim your voice, not just for others, but for you. Because when you speak truth out loud, something happens in your own soul. Fear loses ground, shame dissolves, faith awakens, and the heavens respond. Do you remember when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness? Each time the enemy came with a lie, Jesus answered with a word. It is written, not just thought, spoken. Because silence in a battle is surrender, but words rooted in truth are warfare. You've been quiet long enough. Now I'm calling you to speak again, to prophesy again, to worship with your mouth again, to pray with boldness again, to declare promises over your house again, to speak peace over your own heart again. Even if your voice shakes, even if your words are simple, even if no one else hears, because your voice, filled with my spirit, is not ordinary, it's holy. And when you begin to use it from a place of identity, not performance, not pressure, the world around you starts to shift. Let me show you how powerful this is. Do you remember Mary, young, hidden, unknown by the world? And then I chose her to carry the Messiah, to birth the promise. And when she received the word, what did she do? She sang, "My soul magnifies the Lord." She used her voice to magnify me before anything looked different, before the miracle was visible, before the world celebrated her. And through her song, generations were changed, because voice released in faith becomes legacy. So I ask again, what are you waiting for to use your voice? The right moment, the perfect setting, the approval of others? What if the moment is now? What if your words, your simple, surrendered, identity-rooted words, are the very thing that will unlock peace in someone else's storm? What if they're the key to your next level of healing? What if they're the door through which I'll move in ways you can't yet imagine, but you'll never know until you speak? Write this in the comments as a declaration of release. Holy Spirit, I will use my voice for your glory. Let it be a turning point, a moment where silence turns into surrender and surrender turns into sound. Because when my people begin to speak from love, not fear, from truth, not insecurity, from identity, not imitation, heaven moves, chains fall, blind eyes open, and dry bones start to rattle. You are not just a listener in the kingdom, you are a messenger. You carry words that matter. Words that heal, words that shift atmospheres, words that release hope, words that echo with the authority of the one who called you. So no more silence, no more shrinking, no more waiting to feel ready. The Spirit in you is ready now, and I will give you the words as you speak, not before, as you speak, because trust is not built in comfort, it's forged in movement. And the next key, the one we'll unlock soon, will teach you how to walk not just in voice, but in vision. Because your words carry power, but your perspective determines where you'll go next. Until then, I leave you with this. What if the breakthrough you've been praying for is waiting for your voice to be heard? Key 13. Heaven heals your vision. Before it redirects your path, you've been walking, but not always seeing. You've taken steps in the dark. You've moved forward with faith, even when the path beneath you was uncertain. You've listened, you've trusted, you've obeyed. But still, there are moments when everything ahead looks blurry. You wonder, am I going the right way? Did I miss the turn? Is this delay a detour or divine? And I hear the cry behind your questions. It's not just about direction, it's about vision. You don't just want to know where to go. You want to see how I see, to view your life through the lens of purpose, clarity, peace, to know that the next step matters and that even the detours are holy. And I want that for you too. But here's what you need to understand first. Before I redirect your path, I will always heal your sight, because without healed vision, even a right path feels wrong. Without healed sight, you misinterpret delay as denial. You mistake quiet seasons for abandonment. You view closed doors as punishment instead of protection. You see yourself through past wounds instead of my word. And that distorted vision keeps you bound, not in chains, but in perspective. So I'm here now to lay my hand gently over your eyes and say the same thing my son said to the blind. Do you want to see again? Not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. Because vision isn't just about where you're going. It's about how you perceive everything around you. And when I heal your vision, I realign your entire world. Let me take you back to a familiar story. A man named Elisha, a servant by his side. One morning they woke up surrounded by an enemy army, horses, chariots, soldiers. Fear gripped the servant. Panic clouded his vision. He ran to Elisha and said, "What shall we do?" And Elisha, calm, steady, anchored, prayed one thing. "Lord, open his eyes. That's it, not send more help, not strike down the enemy, just open his eyes. And when I did, the servant saw. He saw what was already there, chariots of fire, angels on the hills, my protection surrounding them. Nothing in the physical changed, but his vision changed, and that changed everything, because when you see with heaven's perspective, fear loses its grip. You stop reacting to what's visible and start responding to what's true. You stop letting circumstances define your hope and start letting me define your reality. You begin to walk, not with confusion, but with confidence. And that's what I want to do for you now, to remove the fog, to clean the lens, to heal the places in your vision that have been damaged by disappointment, by trauma, by unmet expectations. Because I know how easy it is to see wrongly when life has been hard. You've had moments where hope faded, where promises felt broken, where pain became the filter through which you viewed everything, and that pain painted false pictures. You're not progressing. You're forgotten. You failed. You're falling behind. Nothing's changing. But I never gave you those glasses. That's not my voice. That's not my lens. That's not how I see you or your journey. You may feel stuck, but I see soil, and something is growing. You may see barrenness, but I see roots going deep beneath the surface. You may feel delayed, but I see you developing. And when you let me touch your eyes, not just physically but spiritually, I will begin to show you what's actually happening, not what the enemy says, not what fear imagines, but what heaven knows. Let me show you again through the life of someone you know, Paul. When I first encountered him on the road to Damascus, he was walking with purpose, but in the wrong direction, passionate but blind. So I stopped him, not to destroy him, but to redirect him. And the first thing I did, I took his sight. For 3 days, he couldn't see, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because sometimes I have to remove the old vision before I can give you the new one. And when he finally received healing through the hands of Ananias, scales fell from his eyes. And when his eyes were opened, so was his purpose. He saw differently, lived differently, moved differently, because when vision is healed, destiny becomes clear. You've been asking me for clarity. I'm offering you vision, not just to know what to do next, but to see everything, yourself, others, this season, through my eyes. Eyes that see redemptively, eyes that see beyond the now, eyes that see past the mess and into the miracle forming beneath it. And if you'll let me, I will shift your lens from shame to redemption, from failure to formation, from confusion to confidence, because I see clearly, even when you can't. And when your vision aligns with mine, fear fades. You stop living reactionary and start walking prophetically. You begin to declare over your life what I already know is true, even when nothing around you has changed yet. So let me ask you something honest, something only you and I can really know. What lens are you looking through right now? Are you seeing this season through disappointment? Are you interpreting your worth through someone else's rejection? Are you defining the future through past failure, or are you willing to let me touch your sight, to open your eyes, to heal your perspective, to show you that this season is not a waste, it's a womb? That your silence is not abandonment, it's a setup for glory. That the closed doors are not rejections, but redirections to something greater. Write this in the comments if your heart agrees. Holy Spirit, heal my vision. Let that be your prayer today. More than clarity, more than instruction, vision. Because when I touch your eyes, I also touch your path. I won't just show you what's next. I'll show you what's already happening beneath the surface. And when that happens, When you begin to see rightly, you will move with peace even when others panic. You will praise me even when you don't understand. You will walk forward even when the road curves, not because you see the full map, but because you trust the one who does. That's where this journey is leading, to a life not driven by sight, but led by vision. And in the next key, we'll talk about how that vision gives you the strength to wait well, because waiting isn't passive, it's powerful. But until then, let me leave you with this. What if the clarity you've been asking for isn't a new direction, but a new way to see what I've already placed in front of you? Key 14. Waiting is not wasting. It's where strength is reborn. You've been told that waiting is a pause, a detour, a delay. Something to get through as fast as possible, like an empty hallway between one room of breakthrough and the next. But I need you to hear me now, clearly and tenderly. Waiting is not a waste. It's not time lost. It's not purpose delayed. It's not punishment for failure or proof that you've fallen behind. In my kingdom, waiting is not passive. It's active. It's sacred. It's where the deepest parts of your soul are formed, where your roots grow stronger than the winds around you, where your strength is not just restored, it's reborn. But I know waiting is hard, especially when the world moves fast, when everyone else seems to be stepping into their next season and you're still in the hallway of not yet, when doors don't open and silence echoes and your prayers begin to feel like letters returned unopened, when you look around and wonder, what am I missing? But you are not missing anything. You are becoming something. And what I'm doing in you right now is just as important, maybe even more, than the thing you're waiting for. Let me show you why. There's a verse you've heard many times, but today I want to breathe fresh revelation into it. Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Did you catch that? Not those who strive, not those who figure it out, those who wait. Waiting in me is not weakness, it's warfare, because the enemy wants your rush. He wants you so uncomfortable in the stillness that you leap ahead of my timing. He wants you to believe that movement equals meaning, that visibility equals value, that action equals obedience. But I'm not building speed in you, I'm building stamina, not for a sprint, but for the long path of purpose. Because what I'm preparing you for isn't light, it's weighty, eternal, kingdom work. And that kind of calling can't be microwaved, it must be marinated. Let me take you back to David. Anointed as king while still a boy, the oil flowed, but the throne did not. He waited years, running from Saul, hiding in caves, misunderstood by many. It wasn't wasted time, it was warrior training. His heart was being refined, his faith was being forged. He wasn't just waiting to be crowned, he was becoming the kind of king who could carry the crown without it crushing him. And so are you. There's something I want to build in you that can't be developed while you're running ahead. It only grows in the quiet, in the hidden places. In the mornings you rise still unsure, but say yes anyway. In the nights you cry out with no answer, but keep worshipping. That's where strength is reborn, not through shortcuts, through surrender. Because waiting requires trust, not the shallow kind, the kind that says, even if I don't see it yet, I believe you're working. Even if it feels slow, I trust your pace. Even if nothing has changed, I know I'm changing. Let me show you something deeper. When a seed is planted, it doesn't immediately burst into fruit. It waits in the dark, in the dirt, hidden, covered, silent. But within that stillness, life begins to stir. Roots go down before fruit comes up. And if you pulled it too soon, if you rushed the process, you'd stop the miracle from fully forming. That's what the waiting is for. I'm forming something in you beneath the surface. And soon, What's been growing in secret will bloom in the open. But only if you let the waiting finish its work. I know you're tired. I know you want to move forward. But there is a rest I want to teach you that the world cannot offer. Not laziness. Holy rest. The kind of rest that says, I don't need to make it happen because God is faithful. The kind of rest that releases timelines and embraces peace. The kind of rest that worships in the hallway, not just in the breakthrough. Because if you only praise me when the answer comes, you've misunderstood the beauty of communion. But when you love me in the in-between, that's where trust deepens. That's where intimacy becomes real. So let me ask you, what if this season of waiting is the very place where your strength is being renewed? Not in a rush of emotion, not in a sudden revelation, but in the quiet consistency of showing up, praying again, trusting again, listening again, obeying again. That's strength. Not always loud, but unshakable, like rivers that flow beneath the ground, sustaining everything even when no one sees. Write this in the comments if you agree. Holy Spirit, teach me to wait with peace. Because peace in the waiting is power in disguise. And while the world celebrates results, I celebrate roots. Because when the next door opens, and it will, what you carry into that season will depend entirely on what was forged in this one. So don't despise the slowness. Don't curse the pause. Don't assume I've forgotten you just because I've hidden you. Some of my greatest works begin in silence. Some of my greatest warriors are shaped in stillness. And you, beloved, are no exception. Your story is not paused. It's being refined. Your voice is not silenced, it's being strengthened. Your purpose is not lost, it's being anchored. And soon, what felt like a season of delay will be revealed as a season of divine preparation. But until then, trust me in the slowness, worship me in the silence, thank me in the process, because the next key we'll unlock together will speak to the fire. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that purifies, the kind that tests what's been built and proves what will last. But before we step into the fire, let me leave you with this. What if the strength you've been praying for isn't waiting at the finish line, but being formed here in the sacred rhythm of the wait? Key 15. The fire doesn't come to burn you. It comes to refine what will last. You've felt the heat, haven't you? The pressure, the weight, the intensity that rises when everything around you feels uncertain and everything inside you feels exposed. Sometimes you don't even have words for it. It's just a knowing, a burning, a heaviness that doesn't go away, not with distraction, not with striving, not even with time. You've whispered, God, what is this? Why does it feel like I'm being tested, stripped, stretched? And I want to answer you gently now. You are in the fire, not to be consumed, not to be punished, not to be destroyed, but to be refined. Because I love you too much to leave you with what can't carry the weight of your calling. I love you too much to let you build your future on things that won't last. And so, I allow the fire, not to harm you, but to purify you. Not to take everything, but to reveal what was always eternal. You see, the fire comes not when you've failed, but when you're ready. When the layers that once protected you no longer serve you. When the comfort zones that kept you small are no longer fit for your growth. When the gold I placed in you is finally rising to the surface, and everything false must fall away. That's the purpose of this heat, not to weaken you, but to strengthen what's real, to remove the unnecessary, to prepare you for glory. Let me take you to the scriptures, to a moment that mirrors where you are now. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood before a furnace, a fire heated 7 times hotter. They had done nothing wrong. In fact, they were in the fire because they had obeyed me, because they refused to bow to what the world told them to worship, and so they were thrown in. But do you remember what happened? The fire didn't touch them, not their skin, not their clothes. The only thing that burned were the ropes that had bound them, because when I walk with you through the fire, the only things that fall away are the things that were never meant to stay: fear, shame, ego, dependency on approval, performance, idolatry, self-protection. One by one, these things melt in my presence, and in their place you rise, not as someone barely surviving, but as someone refined, tested, purified, whole. There's a beauty that can only come from fire, a depth that no comfort can create, a faith that doesn't just speak, but stands, and I am forming that in you now. But the fire doesn't just refine what's inside, it also reveals who walks with you. Just like that moment in the furnace, there was a fourth figure. Glowing, present, holy. I didn't meet them on the other side of the fire. I walked in it with them. And I am walking in it with you too. You are not alone in this heat. Every cry I hear, every tear I hold, every fear I face down with you. And while the fire is still burning, I want you to hear this. You are not being undone. You are being made new. The breaking is actually your becoming. The shaking is actually your strengthening. What feels like loss is actually a holy exchange, your ashes for my beauty. I am not just after what you do, I'm after who you are and who you are becoming. And when you emerge from this fire, you will not smell like smoke. You will not carry the residue of this season. You will shine like gold. Because I've been here all along, working not to preserve your comfort, but to prepare your capacity. You've asked me to increase you. You've prayed for greater anointing, greater clarity, greater territory, but what you didn't realize is that refinement always precedes release. Before I expand your platform, I solidify your foundation. Before I elevate your voice, I purify your motives. Before I open the door, I test the weight of your character. That's what the fire is doing now. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's humbling. But it is also holy. So don't run from it. Don't despise it. Don't assume I've abandoned you just because the heat increased. This is what answers to prayer sometimes look like. Not immediate relief, but deep transformation. Not quick results, but eternal reward. And you're closer to the breakthrough than you think. Because fire always comes just before the next level of glory. That's what happened to Jesus. After the wilderness, after the testing, after the wrestling with the enemy, he returned in power. The fire prepared him to step fully into the public assignment that waited, and the same is true for you. When this fire finishes its work, your spirit will no longer carry what used to weigh you down. Your eyes will see more clearly. Your heart will beat with greater compassion. Your prayers will carry a sharper edge. Your obedience will move with deeper trust. You will be ready, not just for the next thing, but for the God thing I've prepared for you since the beginning. So stay in the fire. Let it finish its work. Don't rush it. Don't shortcut it. Don't fear it. Because on the other side of this fire is a flame that doesn't fade. The kind that burns in the hearts of those who have been with me, even in the furnace. Write this in the comments, if your spirit bears witness. Holy Spirit, refine me. I trust your fire. Let it be more than a phrase. Let it be your posture. Not one of resistance, but surrender. Not one of escape, but engagement. Because this is the final key. The one that seals the others. The one that proves what's been built in this journey isn't temporary, it's unshakable, it's tested, it's refined. And now I leave you with one final whisper, soft but eternal. The fire you feared has only made room for the glory you were born to carry. You are ready, you are purified, you are anointed, you are mine. And this story, This season, this sacred journey we've walked together, it's only the beginning. If this journey has touched you, leave a final declaration in the comments below. This fire did not destroy me, it refined me for glory. And now, go. Walk boldly, speak clearly, live fully. You have been called, you have been cleansed, you have been commissioned. This is your time, this is your new beginning, and I am with you to the end, forever.